Welcome back to Mighty Race Later, where we're here for a good time, not a long time. So let's get into it. Last week, we talked about why some sports analysts still have jobs and still have 8-figure salaries, and I just cannot stop thinking about it.
It is indeed wild. This is not a super specialized job where only 12 guys on Earth are qualified. It's a person reading stats someone else pulled and then yelling at a co-host about vibes.
This past week, I dove into the numbers around who actually watches sports, because TV executives still think it's one very specific guy in a recliner.
The mythical 52-year-old white man, beer in hand, screaming at the TV about effort and fundamentals, aka my stepfather.
I do scream fundamentals when this is a free throw. I admit that. But going back to actual numbers, that guy is not who is funding the sports industrial complex. It's not even mostly that guy anymore. So let's start with the NFL, because women make up almost half of that audience.
Which means that every time the NFL cuts to a crowd shot of 10 dudes in face paint, there are like 8 women just out of frame who also paid to be there.
And in the NBA, which is still more male than female, but it's closer to 60-40 than some would have you believe. And that fan base is younger and way more racially diverse than the NFL.
Right. The NBA is basically Gen Z and millennials of all races arguing online while Adam Silver quietly prints money.
And the NHL and MLB are more male skewed. But even there, women make up roughly a third of the fans who watch or go to games. It's not just the girlfriend they dragged along. It's actual fans, myself included, for both of those sports.
So if you zoom out, the average sports fan in the U.S. is not an old white guy, midlife crisis, very strong opinions about fullbacks. It's someone who is under 50, probably under 40, and a solid 35 to 45% of them are women.
And a big chunk are not white.
And admittedly, when I picture a generic sports fan, I do picture some guy named Mike who has never once used moisturizer and calls every woman on TV sweetheart.
It's a very specific image, Carrie. So let's look at the money.
And this is where men love to say, I spend so much money on sports. And they aren't lying, because men on average do spend more per fan on tickets, travel, that guy's weekend where they fly to Buffalo in January to sit in the snow on purpose.
But when you get into the boring, unsexy spending that actually keeps everything going, jerseys for the kids, birthday and Christmas presents, the cable package, the streaming add-on service, the do we really need another hat budget?
And who decides if all of that is happening? It's not just the guy in the recliner. In a lot of households, it's a woman looking at the full monthly budget going, if we get the Sunday ticket, but then we're not going to do a 4th travel tournament.
Men are the loud fans, but women are the ones paying for it.
Men are at the pro shop tapping the card, but someone else has probably already approved that purchase in the family group chat.
And you can literally see this dynamic when we talk about the Taylor Swift effect. After she showed up at her first Kansas City Chiefs game, Travis Kelce jersey sales reportedly jumped 400%.
And then they spiked again after the engagement news. And that's not just dudes rewarding good route running, that's Swifties outfitting their entire household.
And this is where it gets so annoying to me, because the fans have changed. The money flows are more complicated. But if you turn on sports TV,
it looks exactly the same as it did 20 years ago.
All of this, and the network's response is, great. Let's put 4 middle-aged guys in suits at a desk and have them yell about great.
It's like they cast man at a bar who has never apologized ×4 and called it a panel.
Women and non-white analysts are usually either on the sidelines or slotted into special segments. Yes, you have someone like Stephen A. Smith, who is a hugely prominent analyst and Black. but he still fits perfectly into the old guy screaming at a TV archetype.
The king of, I say something outrageous, I get roasted for it, and then somehow I still get a raise.
So to reiterate from last week when we talked about this, Stephen A. has talked about wanting a, quote, domesticated partner, complained there is an assault on masculinity, he flirted with coworkers on air, and let's not forget his take about women not provoking domestic violence.
Which is still one of the all-time worst takes to ever be said into a microphone, and that is a very competitive category.
And we could go on about guys like Skip Bayless, who doesn't believe in mental health. Sometimes he doesn't believe in physical health. Colin Cowherd, John McEnroe, who are both stuck in 1984. And that's not even touching on the back in my day guys or the get the skirts off the field guys who are just marinated in casual sexism. So going back, right, we look at the audience, you look at who is making the spending decisions, and then you look at the TV and it's Stephen A. and Skip and McEnroe telling us what is and is not real sports.
It's like putting your grandpa in charge of TikTok because he's the only one who understands the algorithm.
In sports media, if you're the right kind of guy, older, loud, established, you are basically cancel-proof. These guys have all said misogynistic things, been openly hostile to progress, dunk on athletes for talking about mental health, and the worst that happens is a half-hearted apology and maybe a one-day suspension.
It feels like the people in charge genuinely believe that sports only feel real when that guy is narrating them, and they think the audience will vanish if they put someone else in the big chair.
And for another callback from a couple of months ago, we talked about how the newest NFL coaches look more like their owners than their players.
And we don't like to get too serious during our silly little sports rants, but this is how institutional racism, sexism, and all the other isms keep going. The network executives want analysts that they would listen to, and the owners want coaches that they find inspiring. So they just keep hiring versions of themselves.
And they're completely missing out that the teams in the audience look nothing like them anymore. The league's own data is screaming about the fans being younger, more diverse, and more females. And the networks are still like, cool, here's another show with guys yelling about how it used to be.
Imagine a world where the on-air lineup actually matched fan demographics. There would be more women, more people of color, more younger voices, and maybe even someone who can pull up their own stats without calling the IT guy over.
I would settle for someone who has said, I don't know, out loud. That alone would change my life.
And instead, we keep giving the mic to men who are visibly annoyed when women exist in their space, so much that we put them down on the field. And then we act shocked that the conversation around sports feels stuck in the past.
And this is where we have to admit that we still watch, or at least I still watch. I roll my eyes, I yell at the TV, but I'm there. And I'm part of that metric that network executives use to justify keeping these men on television.
So we are not standing outside the system judging it, Jen. We are inside the system, annoyed, but still contributing.
This is the second week in a row where we've had to admit that we're part of the problem. I much prefer the version where we're perfect and everyone else is wrong.
All right, Jen, I know it's going to make you feel better. Let's talk about Ben Affleck.
Hey, thank you.
So Ben Affleck and Matt Damon's company, Artist Equity, is being sued for defamation over their movie, The Rip. Two officers from the Miami-Dade Sheriff's Office, Jason Smith and Jonathan Santana, are suing over how characters are portrayed in the Netflix film.
I love when people tell on themselves in court filings. The officers are not named in the film, But these two guys say that they are the cops portrayed. And they say the movie implies, quote, misconduct, poor judgment, and unethical behavior in connection with a real law enforcement operation.
Yeah, that whole inspired by true events really pissed these guys off.
Absolutely. And I mean, the basic premise that two cops seized more than $20 million in cash is the same. And the officer's complaint claims that the film used some specific non-generic details from the real investigation.
Were these guys interviewed before the film was made? I mean, was it their story that was actually being told?
No. So the Rip's director talked to his buddy, a different cop in the department. And Ben and Matt went to Miami and worked with some narcotics officers to prepare for their roles. It was not these two guys' story. In fact, the complaint specifically says that except for the basic premise and one or two non-generic details, the events of the movie never happened in real life.
But these two guys are still saying that they've been harmed, and they're seeking compensatory damages, punitive damages, attorney's fees, a public retraction, and a prominent disclaimer added to the movie.
Which feels like a lot, considering last month I didn't know these two men existed.
So I know you watched the movie and probably more than once. Did you think that they were dirty cops?
I can't really answer that because I didn't think they were real people. This was not a biography. This movie was based on headlines. So yes, there were dirty cops in the movie. Ben and Matt's characters did some sketchy stuff. But at no point was I thinking about Jason Smith and Jonathan Santana.
Even though they are claiming that friends and family have asked them about stealing the money for themselves. And because of that their reputations have been damaged.
And I'm saying no one outside of their 5 friends knew this movie was about them. They damaged their own reputations when they filed suit.
Their lawyer is also saying that they should have been consulted about the movie and compensated for their story.
So I'll sort of give them that. Mostly because when you buy someone's story for a movie, you're really just buying the right to not get sued later.
Right. And I know it's hard for you to speak badly about Ben Affleck, but do you think these guys have a case?
No. And the cops did reach out to Artist Equity before the movie's release. And if anyone was nervous, they would have written a check then. But Artist Equity and Netflix did not flinch. So clearly they feel like they're on solid legal ground.
And it does feel like a cash grab by 2 cops getting roasted by their buddies at work.
Speaking of cash grabs, Carrie, Kim Kardashian had a win in court recently. Ivan Canto sued her for accidentally using his photo in a social media reel about a different incarcerated Ivan Canto. And this guy not only lost his defamation suit, but now has to pay Kim K $167,000 in attorney's fees.
Dang, that judge really said, there will be no frivolous lawsuits here, sir.
Speaking of frivolous lawsuits, how about your buddy Alec Murdaugh suing Becky Hill for violating his right to a fair trial?
I do think that this is another version, albeit one with a murder backstory, of the classic litigation of both sides are awful. Like Blake and Baldoni or Sam Altman and Elon Musk. Since the South Carolina Supreme Court decision last week, the current state attorney general and also current Republican candidate for governor, Alan Wilson, has said that his office will aggressively prosecute a new trial, and that all options are back on the table, including this time the death penalty, and that they want to launch a new trial before the end of the year.
So this AG has basically heard new trial and said, great, let me campaign on this real quick.
I mean, it didn't hurt, right? Alec's lawyers have responded, of course, and said that Alan Wilson is playing politics and that he cannot bring the death penalty up without new evidence, because otherwise that would be barred as vindictive prosecution. And a direct quote from them about starting a new trial before the end of the year was hell no, even though they declined to say if they had new evidence or why they couldn't start before next year.
So, as for the retrial, the basic legal strategy is I will not be rushed, I will not be specific. This is a 5-year-old murder case. Okay, so what about for the civil case against Becky Hill? I mean, if Murdaugh's team thinks that she has $600K lying around, they have been in low country fantasy land for far too long.
They say they want to know the full extent of Becky's bad actions and the scope of the jury interference, and if others were involved, and that the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, which we call SLED, had a conflict of interest in investigating Becky because they wouldn't want to generate any doubt in the state's case. Now, when Alex's team was asked about if they had any new theories as to who would have killed Maggie and Paul, they shifted the blame right back to SLED and said that that ship had sailed because of a sloppy investigation the night of and then the immediate aftermath of the murders. And you know what, Jen, I think maybe they're right about that because it's not a good look to diss law enforcement like that, but I've always questioned why the entire property wasn't declared a crime scene. They let Alex and all his buddies take over the house that night. And that's the same house that had potential evidence of clothing that he might have been wearing at the time of the murders, the guns, the fingerprints, etc.
Are you saying he might not really be guilty of murdering his wife and son?
No, but they might have found evidence linking the murders to another person that helped him, or maybe more evidence that it was in fact Alec.
Okay, so on paper, Alex's team is not wrong to question Becky Hill and SLED, but also their client is Alec Murdaugh.
As we said last week, it's a very they ain't wrong, but it ain't right situation.
I believe that as our official legal position on this entire circuit.
And the good news is that Alan Wilson and Alex Murdaugh's teams will continue to be sassy with each other. I'm sure Dick Harpootlian is going to give us some more memeable gems before this next trial is over, and of course I will be watching.
We try to stay away from politics, but Carrie and I don't live in LA. So we're allowed to laugh at what is happening in their mayoral race.
Spencer Pratt, who you may remember from reality TV fame, is running for mayor of Los Angeles and is actually polling in the mix. And this is not a joke.
The LA mayor's race is nonpartisan. So they have a giant primary with like 15 people on the ballot. If one of them, Karen Bass, for instance, the incumbent, gets over 50%, race is over, she stays mayor. But if nobody clears that 50% threshold, the top two go to a November runoff.
And with the primary coming up on June 2nd, there's a real chance that Spencer Pratt ends up on the ballot against Karen Bass in the general election.
And no one actually thinks right now that Spencer Pratt is going to win. But if he does, he has said he wants to film his time in office for a yet-to-be-named reality show.
Of course he has. Do you think there's any chance that we could get a crossover show with Mr. Secretary Road Rules?
I am sure they've already had production meetings about this. And this whole thing actually reminded me of why lawyers became politicians in the first place. So lawyers could not advertise until the late 1970s. And even then, it was considered tacky to do so.
Right. History moment. It was considered unprofessional to run billboards. And so small town lawyers would run for local office or even Congress to get some name recognition for their law practice.
And after a few years, they would go back to their firm, which was way more lucrative than public service. But while they were in office, they actually had to be good at their job because they wanted their hometown to love them and hire them when they got back.
Which This is a good old days moment because that's how it should be. Like, go do a good job in public service for a few years and then go home.
Yeah, I 100% agree, right? We would have fewer career politicians. We would have career lawyers who happen to have served for a bit.
And now we have this weird version of that where we have failing reality stars running for office for a little name recognition. And then they're going to go back to television because that's where the money is and where they really want to be.
And in Spencer Pratt's case, his entire reality TV persona was to be the villain. So maybe he really is just some angry Angelino who wants his city to be better.
Or maybe he's still a villain who needs new material and or a job.
Right. I mean, he did lose his house in the LA fires. I don't want to laugh. I really don't, because this is real for some people. But imagine Heidi Montag as the First Lady of Los Angeles.
I am picturing lots of gold bedazzled crosses and a very intense crystal budget.
I cannot wait. All right, y'all. This is it for this episode of Mighty Race Later.
Don't forget to like and subscribe so Jen can keep working through her moral crises. Is it crises or crisis? Crises? Don't forget to like and subscribe so Jen can keep working through her moral crises. And we can keep dragging men who insist on supplying us with content.